This girl fell asleep on the bus. The boy next to her came over to close the window. The girl suddenly woke up and was scared. She leaned back. The two looked at each other and found that Untaek had called him several times, but he didn't respond. So he had to close the window himself. But after a while, Xiaolang opened the window again. It was obvious that the two were unhappy. It turned out that yesterday, Untaek went to Xiaolang to invite him to the broadcasting department, but Xiaolang decisively refused. However, Xiaolang was not to be outdone and sarcastically said. En said a few words and the two sides parted unhappily. That day, Xiaolang was leaning against a big tree and listening to the radio. Suddenly, he heard a story about his past experience on the radio. So in order to find out the origin of the story, Xiaolang went to the broadcasting department for an interview. Enz then remembered that his invitation was rejected yesterday and said directly that today's interview was over. But a classmate from the broadcasting department on the side helped Xiaolang and said that the interview directly asked him to leave the broadcasting department. Xiaolang was so angry that he didn't know what happened. Find out who the contributor is. Untaek asked him to leave the broadcast. In order to find out who the contributor is, Little Wolf had to hold back his temper. He apologized to Untaek and promised not to be late in the future. Little Wolf joined the broadcast without cleaning the toilet. He had never cleaned the toilet. Little Wolf played music and drew circles on the floor. At this time, Untaek came in. Untaek said he was very patient. On the way home at night, Little Wolf met his former best friend Little Wolf. At this time, Xiao Xian called Xiaolang and said that he could tell him who the contributor of the story on the radio was. However, Lang told him to mind his own business and pretend not to know him when he met him in the future. What did he go through when he met his best friend and pretended not to know him when he met him? Kuai show you about every kind of life.